We expect the stars to perform week in, week out, season after season. The Haalands, the De Bruynes, the Mbappes, the Messis. But we are always shocked as fans as we see the breakout performers year in and year out. Who are those breakout performers this year? On this week's episode of the SlabStox FC Show. What is going on, everyone? I'm Andrew at St. Croix Cards, back with another episode of the SlabStox FC Show. Could not be more thrilled to be with y'all today, talking about the breakout performers of this year. I can't wait to look at them, but before we do, I think we have to talk a little bit about the European season coming to a close, and as the dust settles in the Premier League, we see the red line, the dreaded red line, and what three teams have fallen victim to relegation. As you can see, we've got Southampton, which we knew, Leeds United, and Leicester City all dumping into the championship next year. And it was really incredible watching Everton stay up kind of on the last day of the season. I just love the drama of the relegation battle in the Premier League. Hats off to Man City for once again winning the title. Great run in to end the season, just on a fantastic streak there before the end of the season, but well deserved for Man City. And they're not done yet, right? They still have the FA Cup against Manchester United, and they still have that Champions League final to play in. So lots to play for Man City. That treble is still alive, and we'll see if they can get it done. But we're not here to talk just relegation and tipping our hats off to Man City. We have to talk about the breakout performers of this season. And I thought we'd do a little bit different today. We're going to work back to front. I got a goalkeeper, I got a center back, a couple midfielders, and we're going to finish off the conversation with some attackers. And then I've got a little bit of a nugget for maybe, just maybe, a breakout performer for next year. You've probably heard his name already, but I'll wait till the end so we can talk a little bit about that. But without further ado, we're going to jump right in and start in La Liga this year. Giorgi Mamardashvili. I hope I said that correctly. There are some breakout performers with very difficult names to pronounce, so I apologize. But Mamardashvili is a goalkeeper, 22. I believe he's from Georgia, and he played his club football this year at Valencia in La Liga. If you know the table in La Liga, Valencia was pretty far down the list, didn't have the greatest season, but through 36 games this season, Mamardashvili had 103 saves, ranked him 6th in La Liga, and he had 7 clean sheets. Now, the 7 clean sheets, looking at 36 games, you might say, that's not very good. Well, you can make saves, but you also need a little bit of support from the defense in front of you, and Valencia did not have the greatest defense this year. But here is a young goalkeeper with a lot of transfer buzz. There's 3 big Premier League teams who are buying for Mamardashvili entering into the summer. The first one would be Man United. What's going to happen with De Gea? Where is De Gea going to go? Is he going to stay? Are they going to replace De Gea? The second one was Tottenham. Hugo Lloris is on his way out. Is Mamardashvili a great fit there? And then the other names that have been, the other name of the club that's been thrown around is Chelsea. Are they going to move on from Kepa? Are they going to put Mamardashvili in there? This guy's got a lot of potential, and remember, he's just 22 years old. And the best part of all of these breakout performers, I hope you are excited as much as I am, is all of the select product in La Liga and Serie A and the Premier League. We had a lot of cards for the first time of these players. So the gold select auto is the one I want to look at first. The select gold out of 10 auto of Mamardashvili sold May 16th. Raw copy for $81. $81. I know he's a goalkeeper. I know goalkeepers and center backs don't really hold their value or have the value like a striker or an attacking midfielder. But $81 gold auto for a goalkeeper is pretty healthy in my book. And it's not going to break the bank. If you're a Man United, if you're a Chelsea, if you're a Spurs fan and you're like, this could be my goalkeeper, maybe it's possible you say, I want to go out and I want to buy one of the best rookie auto cards out of Select that you can find. That would be probably at least the gold would be up there in that conversation. And for $81 raw, it may not be a bad move. But the other cards, if that is not your cup of tea, if you're like $81 is still pretty expensive. He also has the Prism autos out of Select, not numbered, but still looking pretty good. And those sold, again, these are all raw copies because the product just came out in late April. So this auto sold just after the release of the product. And I point that out for a specific reason, and many of us know, but we'll talk about here in just a second. This sold on eBay April 22nd for $36.35. So not anything too crazy, but if you back up just a little bit, April, or fast forward just a little bit, that release tends to be where some of the highest prices, where people are looking for their cards. They're finally able to find those cards, and they might be willing to pay a higher price right around release. So that's why you might hear many people say, if it's something that you really want, if it's not numbered or you don't think it's going to be hard to find, maybe you hold off. Because I'm not one to say don't buy just on release or after release, because there are some really great, hard to find, rare cards that pop out early on release because so many people are opening it. And you may have to pay a little bit of a higher price to ensure that you get the card that you want. But here, being a silver prism of Mamardashvili, Valencia's goalkeeper, $36 doesn't seem like a lot. But then you fast forward to April 29th, one sold on auction on eBay for $11. And then here, just a few weeks ago, May 15th, one sold for $14.99. But again, if $81, you're like, I don't want to quite take a chance on a 22-year-old goalkeeper, gold auto out of 10 for $81. But for $15, possibly moving to my club and being my goalkeeper for the next 10, 12 years, depending on how long he could stay there. Yeah, maybe I'll stash one of those rookie Prism, Select Prism autos away. So really kind of one to watch. Maybe a name, you might hear it. Maybe, you hear it start to kind of percolate in the transfer news, but be on the lookout for Mamardashvili as he probably makes a Premier League move here over the summer. Second player that I want to talk about is Min Jae Kim. Min Jae. He is in Prism World Cup because he did appear in the World Cup this year. But he kind of was in Turkey in 2021, 2022. Started pretty much every game for Fenerbahce in Super League. 31 games, 1 goal. Got the move to Napoli in Serie A in Italy. And has really been a rock in their defense for their title, right? They win Serie A for the first time since, I believe, 1990 when Maradona was still a part of Napoli, which is pretty incredible that it's been that long. But 35 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, and he slotted right into that defense. Koulibaly left for Chelsea, didn't really have the greatest performances for Chelsea, but here you have Min Jae Kim kind of slide in there and take over and really become a transfer rumored player, right? I think the big name on everybody, that's coming out with Min Jae Kim is Man United. Is he going to be the replacement for Harry Maguire? Now, breakout performer, absolutely. But I will just kind of say he is 26 years old. So he's not kind of a William Saliba or a very young, center back that has many, many years. Like he's 26 years old. Now I know age is just a number. I would be the first to say that, as I just celebrated a birthday. And the older you get, 26 doesn't seem so young anymore or old anymore. So 26 is a good year. He's kind of in his prime, and will he get his move? But I use the red Pulsar refractor from 2022 Prism. Now, these are all raw sales, but I like using kind of, sometimes the higher numbered cards out of 99, out of 150, just because there's more sales data that you can kind of look at and see kind of, more price points. Okay, is the card trending upwards or is the card trending downwards? Now, May 13th, the Pulsar, the red out of 99. I also like it just because it kind of has this slight color match. If you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see that. If not, the red, and then Korea had kind of that dark red kit on the bottom, and it kind of lightened up as it got to the top during the World Cup. But May 13th, this card sold out of 99 for $26. May 22nd and May 27th, we pretty much have identical sales. May 22nd, $20.50 for this raw copy out of 99. And then May 27th, we saw a sales price of $20. So really, as we look at as we look at Kim, we kind of sit there and say, okay, is there potential if he moves to a bigger club in a Premier League team that has a large fan base? Not saying Napoli doesn't have a large fan base, but Man United and people looking for their players and their transfer players coming in, you could see a slight bump, but again, center backs, goalkeepers don't really hold the same, the value or have the same value as those attacking players. But if they're your team, again, if they're your players who are coming in on transfer, maybe it's something that you want to pick up and hold on to. As we move, the one sale that really kind of surprised me in price point was his green 2022 Panini Prism World Cup out of 5. Now, this is a raw copy. Sold middle of May 15th for $522. So when I was kind of looking at his cards overall and kind of looking at prices, this one stood out to me to be like, wow, that's a pretty healthy price for a 26-year-old center back in Italy, in Kim, Min Jae Kim, as he looks to possibly get that big move into the Premier League. I think it's going to happen. That's me personally. That's my opinion. I think he will move over the summer, but just a really great player to slot in and win a title there for Napoli, who had gone so many years without a title. We're going to move into the midfield, and we are going to stay in the Eredivisie for both players today. The first one I want to talk about is Mohammed Kudus, 22 years old, plays for Ajax, and has been at Ajax for quite a while, 2021, 2022. And this is what I mean by breakout performers. In 21-22, he played in 16 games. So a good number of games, had a goal and an assist. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing, groundbreaking, nothing that would say needs a transfer elsewhere. But 2022-23, this year, kind of breaks out, plays in 30 games, scores 11 goals and 3 assists. And he's getting linked to some pretty big clubs, Arsenal being one of them. I don't know how likely that is. I'm always really skeptical. I don't know about you guys, but like Arsenal is linked to every single player every single year. Like if we signed every player we were linked to, we'd have hundreds of players. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think he's a great player in the midfield, is able to score goals from the midfield. But if you're looking for his rookie cards, you're going back a little ways. You're going back to 2020, 2021 Panini Obsidian. Now, his green etch just sold May 19th. This is a raw copy, and it's sold for $150. Now, that green etch is out of 25 for $150. Now, I love breakout performers because not all of them are the headliners in their classes. Sometimes it takes a little while for guys to get going. Kudus being 22, like we expect everybody to be Jude Bellingham, to be a teenager, boss in the midfield around, and our expectations is they're going to teenagers are going to produce week in and week out. Kudus, 2020, 2021, he wasn't the headliner. He wasn't the chase. We know 2020 was all about Jude Bellingham, and we were talking, I believe, Musiala, and we were looking at Pedri's. Not anybody I know. Maybe I'm wrong. If you were chasing Kudus in 2020, hats off to you because you saw something that a lot of us didn't. But out of 25, sold $150. And the reason I bring up this sale on May 19th is we got to back up a little bit. September 9th, again, remember Kudus was in the World Cup. He plays for his home country is Ghana. I believe he had 2 goals in the World Cup. And so September 9th, in the build-up to the World Cup, this green etch out of 25 sold for $85. But if you back up even further, January 10th of 2022, so we're going about 16 months ago, this green etch out of 25 was $25.13. All of these are raw copies, but we've gone from January 10th of 2022 at $25.13 to one just selling here in the middle of May for $150. A lot of, trending in the upward direction, which then I would caution, we don't know where he's going. Is he going to stay at Ajax? Prices are pretty high. If you were a fan, and want to get a card like that, by all means, that's great. But some of you might be saying, you know what? $150 is a lot to pay for a performer who has really performed for 1 year. And that's really all these guys, right? They've come on the scene, they've impressed for 1 year. Are we willing to kind of take that step and buy, not knowing what they're going to do in the next season? Like the first player that comes to mind in all the news, is kind of swirling around a player like Mason Mount, Chelsea midfielder. Last year had a fantastic year for Chelsea and really has not lived up to the expectations that he set for himself in his production at Chelsea last year. And now there's this, talks of personal terms being agreed upon against Man United. Is he going to get a move? What's the transfer fee going to be? We'll have to wait and find out. So it's possible that these guys are able to replicate what they've done in previous seasons. We see it with the superstars, right? We've seen, Mbappe has replicated 20 plus goals for how many years in a row now? Haaland is starting to get on that track where we just expect greatness. Now, some of these guys in smaller leagues, they don't have a whole lot of cards. And for Kudus, it's been a 2-year wait. So if you were one opening Obsidian in 2020 and now you've kind of put those in a box, get the box out and see if you got any Kudus that you can kind of decide if you want to grade it or you want to sell it, or maybe you just want to hang on to it and see where he ends up. But there are also options for Mohammed Kudus which are not overly priced. So if 150, you're saying, you know what, I'm not going to put that much money in a breakout performer, you can still pick up some great autos of Kudus out of 2022 Topps Stadium Club Chrome. They're not numbered, but you can get these for around $10. A raw copy, a raw auto sold May 29th. For $10. Back on May 11th, one sold for $13.50. So there are options out there. If nothing less, Breakout Performers, type the name in eBay and see, what is available, what catches your eye, what do you like, if you like the players. And I hope it's not just me telling you, go watch some of these games. Now, I know some of these guys in leagues that aren't the Premier League or Serie A or La Liga are tough to find. But if you can watch some of these games and see some of these athletes and say, you know what, I believe in that player. Believe in that player. Look for what they've got on the market and then decide which one is best suited for you and your hobby experience. So that's Kudus. And we're going to stay because there was a massive chase for our next breakout performer, and that is Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons in 2020 was one of the chases. People were looking for this really, really young kid out of PSG who really didn't live up to the quote-unquote hype. There were a lot of people who were disappointed. Again, remember, he's a teenager playing against grown men. I know Jude has kind of warped our rationale in saying everybody should hit the ground running and be fantastic all the time. But Xavi Simons, 2021, 2022, 6 games. He didn't score a goal. He didn't have an assist. And then he signed a 5-year contract with PSV. I believe PSV finished second in the Eredivisie this year. Is it Feyenoord? I think Feyenoord ended up winning the league. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the YouTube comments below or DM me and let me know that I was wrong. But I think Feyenoord came out on top there. But the interesting thing with Simons, 33 games for PSV this year, 19 goals, 9 assists. Fantastic year for him. And now it's really going to get interesting because he did sign this contract with PSV. I believe it was for 5 years. But there's some rumors swirling that there is a buyback clause that PSG has on Simons. I would love to know. I don't know a whole lot about this particular buyback clause. If you are knowledgeable on PSV or on PSG and you know if there is a buyback clause option, please leave it in the comments below. I'm the first one to say I don't know everything about soccer. I am a lifelong learner, and I constantly am trying to just absorb information and learn about the great players and the great traditions of the great clubs and leagues around the world. But I don't know too much about the buyback clause. I think it's there from what I have read, but I'm not 100% sure. Could you imagine, we talk about this idea of Messi leaving for Barcelona again, and now the new rumor is through Miami of MLS. That's a whole different story. But is it possible that Simons goes back to PSG and slots himself in the midfield. And we have seen people who are pretty excited about the possibility and the potential of Xavi Simons as we look to next year. So the card that I really wanted to start off is just a really, really big sale that I wanted to point out. His 2020 Merlin Chrome Orange Refractor, numbered out of 25, PSA 10, sold May 28th for $1,000. Breakout Performer, prices are on the move, and many of us, including myself, would look at that price tag and say, yeah, it might be out of my price range. But there are some really great cards in that Merlin set. Again, that is the 2020. That is the first year of Merlin. So that kind of sets it apart itself. But there are some great refractors of Xavi Simons that you can pick up for under $50. These are PSA 10s, 2020, 2021 Topps Merlin refractors. This is PSA 10, March 11th, one sold for $44.82. And you might be asking yourself the question, why did I go back to March? Well, we saw this big sale here in May of the orange out of 25 for $1,000. But May 29th, a refractor PSA 10 Topps Merlin Chrome of Xavi Simons sold for $47.76. So less than $3 in difference from March 11th to May 29th. Even though the fact is he scored almost 20 goals. He almost went 20-10 this year in the Eredivisie. So really one to watch for the next couple years to come. Could be a really great player, whether he stays at PSV and has another fantastic season or makes the move, or that buyback clause is triggered if it is there, and he ends up back in League One in France with PSG. There's also, he's not just in the Merlin Chrome. The other one I wanted to point out too is he is in the Stadium Club Chrome. I picked his Aqua out of 199 that we can kind of look at. Again, PSA 10s. His rookie cards have been around for a few years now, so you're seeing a lot more through grading, and it shows through the grading that there were a lot of people who were excited about this kid, and for good reason. It just took us a couple years to get there. So if you were Stadium Club, if you were Merlin of 2020, go back, look at your refractors, any color that you weren't grading, that weren't Jude and Pedri and Musiala. Is Xavi Simons in there? Is he worth to kind of pull out and take a second look at? But May 22nd, one of his Aqua PSA 10s sold for $67.20. Fast forward to May 28th, one sold for an even $100. So maybe that might be in more of a price range where you're like, you know what? I'm going to take a flyer. I believe in this kid. I believe in his technical ability, and I'm going to look forward to next year with a card of him in my box. But just a few options that you have on Xavi Simons. Now, we could not talk about breakout performers, and we've talked about him on the show before, but Folarin Balogun is the striker that a lot of people have been talking about over the course of this year. Now, he is 21 years old, and the big news middle of May was that he made his one nationality change with FIFA and is officially become a part of the U.S. men's national team. Now, I am ecstatic. As an Arsenal player on loan in League One at Rennes, he has 36 games under his belt. He's gone out. He has played and played well. 20 goals, 3 assists. I don't know if anybody caught it, but he tweeted out after he scored 20 goals that he's the first American ever to score 20 goals in a top 5 league in Europe. But 20 goals, 3 assists. Could not be happier as he is still on Arsenal's books. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he's going to get a permanent deal elsewhere, if he's going to have a transfer out of Arsenal, or if he's going to stay and compete for that striker role at Arsenal. That age demographic fits what we're building at Arsenal. I don't know, but we do have some other guys there already in the 9. We'll have to wait and find out. But I do have slight hesitation. And again, breakout year in France, but you got to look at last year, 2021, 2022. He was on loan in the championship. So he spent about 18 games with Middlesbrough, and he ended with 3 goals and 3 assists. So it hasn't been production in every level. So he's had this breakout performance. Can it be sustained? Can he do it again next year? And that's where, pricing, usually might not get super high until they show that they can do it year in and year out. The caveat here with Balogun is that he has now attached the U.S. men's national team to his name and to his title. And I think that is going to cause a little bit of a bump in his pricing because, it's really difficult to find, games for the French league. So I don't know how many people have seen him play week in and week out, but we have seen some pretty healthy sales of Balogun, but even recently it has come down quite a bit from the middle of May, and I'll explain that here in just a second. But here is his 2021 rookie card from Panini Prism Premier League. This is his blue rookie out of 340, so it is quite a high numbered card. It is a PSA 10. It sold May 28th on PWCC's weekly auction for $156. So pretty high price. If you haven't been tracking his pricing, you wouldn't know that is actually significantly down from earlier in May, just a few days earlier in May. So May 22nd, the PSA 10 blue out of 340 from Panini Prism sold for $222.50. And then May 24th, it sold for $220. PSA 10 blue out of 340. And we're wondering maybe why the bump, why the trending down if he's got 20 goals, is he still performing at a high level? And this is my personal opinion. I think it's because of that announcement May 16th. May 16th, he said, I've made my switch, U.S. men's national team. And I think a lot of people got excited. It's not getting excited for a center back or a goalie. Like, here is the striker. We all saw, or many of us saw, maybe it didn't, just the absolute pandemonium in pricing that Ricardo Pepi experienced when he scored a couple goals for the U.S. men's national team as a teenager. Prices went through the roof for some of his MLS stuff for FC Dallas. But here we have Folarin Balogun, playing well and becoming part of the U.S. men's national team, where you started to see prices go up maybe a little higher than they normally would just on sheer performance. Because again, he's in the French league. A lot of people aren't tracking and following those teams week in and week out. Maybe you're looking to see how PSG did. Did Messi score? Did Mbappe score? What's the condition of Neymar? A lot of it is PSG very, very top heavy. And then you've got the other teams in League One as well. But some really, really healthy prices for Balogun as he finished up the year in France. But here is, one of the comments. May 16th is that day that he does, say, I'm a part of the U.S. men's national team. And it's not just Prism Premier League. He actually has a rookie card out of Score of 2021, 2022. And that is, this is his pink out of 25, a raw copy sold for $257.70 on May 16th. So on the day that he switched and became part of the U.S. men's national team. So he's one to keep an eye on what is going to be his end destination over the summer. And then finally, we have the one that a lot of people were talking about, Kvaradona. Some people are saying Khvicha Kvaratskhelia. I know I probably didn't get that name right, and there's been some big performers this year who have really difficult names to pronounce, so please forgive me if I didn't get that right. But he is not a part of the U.S. men's national team. I apologize if you're looking at this. But 2022-2023 Serie A for Napoli, 33 games, 12 goals, 13 assists, just on fire to start the year. But I will say the one thing that was a little bit of a red flag, it's not a big red flag for me, but what has he done down the stretch? Now, Napoli still wins the league, but he, in the last 10 games of Serie A, had 1 assist. That was it. So, and I don't know, a lot of these guys who make these transfers from smaller leagues to bigger clubs and bigger leagues, can run out of gas. I would even sit there and say Bukayo Saka did not perform the best down the stretch. And you may disagree with me, but, I thought, he played a lot of minutes at the World Cup. He played a lot of minutes week in and week out for Arsenal. And I think just the minutes got to him. He running out of gas at the end of the year. He did his best, Khvicha as well. But he was still able to get Napoli over the line, and they won the league for the first time in I think, 30 years? We talked a little bit about that earlier in the episode. But the interesting thing about Khvicha is he is in Serie A Select. That is the news, that he is the chase, one of the chases in that set this year. But prices are pretty high for base cards. Now, normally I'm not showing base cards on the SlabStox FC episodes, but really his mezzanine base out of Select Serie A sold May 28th for $80. Raw copy, $80 for a base mezzanine of Khvicha has sold for $80 on May 28th. And that is not just the only pricing. May 27th, one sold for $76. It's not just a flash in the pan. And then back on May 24th, close to the release date, we had one sell for $130. That's a lot to pay for base. Now, this again is when the product releases, for me, it's always my mindset is, am I going to be able to find it again? That's always how I ask. So like when I'm looking at a base mezzanine of Khvicha, I'm sitting there saying, you know what? I'm probably going to be able to find that card next week, next month, next year, 5 years down the road. So I may not want to buy right on the release date. But if I'm looking at something like his gold future out of Select Serie A, that's out of 10. Now I know the price point is completely different, but I'm looking at that card going, I don't know when the next out of 10 gold is going to surface. So if he's somebody that I truly believe in, am I willing to pay the premium close to the release to ensure that I get a card that I really want for $725? So here's the sale, May 26th. His gold out of 10 sold for $725. Now that's more of a rare card that I say I might not be able to find this again. And so I'm going to grab it now, and I'm okay with it because I like the card. I like the player, and I'm comfortable, with the price that I bought it at. Now, not saying don't overreach for cards, but I'm talking about if it's a card that you like, if it's a player that you like, that's a player that you've seen play. We've talked about that before, kind of going through your process and saying, it's pretty rare. It's a card that I want to own, and I'm going to be in on it. So that's kind of my mentality. I'd love to know yours kind of on a release, because some people are saying never buy around the release. I believe in that to a degree, but it's more of like common sense. Can I find this card again? Like if it's numbered out of 340, there's chances that multiple of them are going to come up here and there. Now, if it's out of 3 or out of 5, you might want to jump on that right now. Great example. I'm my big PC is Brooks Lennon, right back for Atlanta United. Still searching for the top finest superfractor. But I was willing to jump on the red Topps Finest and probably paid more than it was worth because it's out of 5 and I didn't know if I was going to see it again. So I bet I needed to have it, jumped on it, got it, and never had a second thought about was it a good idea or a bad idea because I wanted that card, needed that card, was willing to pay for that card. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at some of these prices, as many of these select products are pretty much new releases here over the past month. Now, I did promise you one player who might just be a breakout player next year. Somebody who has kind of come onto the scene, striker again. I tried to stick with the strikers, but here is Evan Ferguson, 18-year-old striker for Brighton in the Premier League. Plays his nationality is Ireland, so he plays for Ireland. And will represent them. Even come out saying that he's not switching and he's there to stay. 19 games in the Premier League this year. He had 6 goals and 2 assists. Pretty solid year for only playing in 19 games and being 18 years old. He's got a big build. He's very technical. I have been pretty impressed with him. And I love the fact that he's playing for Brighton. Now, not only is he going to be on a team that seems to always find players, McAllister's on his way out. Trossard is at Arsenal. And here you have Mitoma, who's another Premier League, breakout performer this year that we didn't talk about today. But you see guys that just continue to come into Brighton, and they qualified for European football out of the Premier League. So he is going to have an opportunity to play in Europe and to play in the Premier League. I'm really excited of what he can do. And I know other people have been talking about him and in breaks and have been chasing his cards. And people know about Evan Ferguson. But for me, 18 years old, Irish, ready to play in the Premier League, and even put up 6 goals this year says a lot about what could possibly come down the pipe next year. So one of the cards that I did look at, this is his Prism, his White Ice Prism rookie out of Select. This is out of 25, sold May 26th for $235. And then finally, you if that's too expensive for somebody who you may not know about or you haven't had a chance to look at or watch too often, there's some other options out there. He's got silvers out of Select Premier League. Here's his field level purple out of 135. Sold May 28th for $25. But just a lot of options, as you start to look at, who are those players that are going to be coming up in the years to come. Now, there are so many breakout performers. I gave you just a few here today. I gave you 6 players and Evan Ferguson that we could look at, but I would love to know who your breakout performers was. I mentioned Mitoma and we didn't even talk about him today, but who did you think were those players that were breakout performers that we didn't go over today? It could be an hour or a 2-hour show if we went, league by league and looked at all the breakout performers, because they're out there. So I want to hear from you and who you think are the breakout performers. But that's really all that I have for you this week. I hope that you enjoyed the breakout performers. Leave me a comment in the comments below of what you thought about the episode, what players you would have put into the breakout performers list, and just give me any feedback, anything that you guys want to talk about on the SlabStox FC show. I hope that you all have a great day, a great rest of your week, but really enjoy and make it a great day. We'll see you guys next time.